What about a lookalike? Maybe it wasn't actually Jesus on the cross. Maybe it was somebody who looked like him. My understanding is that Islam or some Muslims hold to something like that.
Yeah, Muslims claim that God. Well, there's a couple different. One thing is that they only made Jesus appear to die. He was actually crucified. They made it appear that he died, and they removed him off the cross. God healed him and took him to heaven. The other is that God made another one, like maybe Simon of Cyrene, or as the Gospel of Barnabas says, made Judas look like Jesus, and they took him and they crucified him instead. So couple problems with that. One would be that's certainly not going to convince Paul, right? A lookalike.
It wouldn't convince Paul. It could convince the others if Christ had then appeared to them, and we could just say Paul was hallucinating. And it's a lot more likely that one person hallucinates than a crowd does.
Yeah, except with Thomas, they said that Thomas, Judas, that the Gospel of Barnabas says that, he was made to look like Jesus. You got Matthew saying that he went out and hanged himself, right? And however you want to reconcile that with Acts, it says he fell headlong. But either way, they both reported that Judas had died. It's not like he just disappeared. He went out and died, committed suicide after that. So that wouldn't fit with that kind of theory. And if then you got to look and you say, okay, was this a supernatural thing that someone was made to look like Jesus? Or was this just mistaken identity? If you're looking at the Muslim view that God made someone look like Jesus, then why? We can understand why God would deceive the Jewish authorities, the Romans, but why would he deceive the disciples of Jesus and lead them to believe that Jesus had died for their sins and rose from the dead, and then build the largest religion in the world and the greatest defeater, the strongest defeater of Islam today? Why would he do that? Wouldn't seem to be very wise of God. And the Quran refers to the disciples of Jesus as Muslims. And that means that God deceived Jesus' disciples who were Muslims. And if he's willing to deceive them, how do you know that he's not deceiving you and Muhammad's followers back then and you today? You couldn't know that.
That's a very good response. Have you debated Muslim scholars on this point?
I have.
I can tell. Hey, if you enjoyed that clip, you will absolutely love the full interview, so click right there to enjoy the whole thing. Also, a big thanks to these groups who made that interview possible. Learn more in the show notes below about these guys. They're absolutely incredible, and honored to have them as sponsors. Oh, and also, if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe and then that bell button. That way YouTube will be forced to let you know when we put out more content.